Mississauga father is angry and upset that his son was tasered by Peel police despite being on the vulnerable persons registry. Madge Darwich tells CTV News Toronto the system failed 19-year-old Abdullah, who has autism and is nonverbal. Police say they were responding to a 911 call for reports of a suspicious person in a state of undress attempting to enter a vehicle and a house. When they got there, police say his identity was not known to them, despite being on the vulnerable persons registry. Abdullah's father says his son was not a threat and they should not have used excessive force.
Son is already registered in the police station or police department that he is a vulnerable person. And they have his photo, they have his details, they have how to deal, how to approach him. All of this data is in their file. I mean, when they found this guy playing like that with the leaves, he was naked. I mean, let's say 50% he is sick boy and 50% he is something else. They should test, they should see what they have. If one of them bothered himself and press the key and see what they have in this area, because he is not far from our home, I mean from the address who is registered in, they will find his photo, they will find how to deal with him. They just dealt with him as a criminal.
Peel police say a review of the incident is being conducted, and they released this statement that reads in part, "The Vulnerable Person Registry contains vital information specific to an individual's needs and typically includes a photo. It's associated to that person, their address, vehicles, etc. The registry is only effective if that known information is provided to us. For example, if we responded to the individual's address or the caller provided the individual's name or simply mentioned that it could be them, then the responding officers would be alerted to the specific vulnerabilities and how to address them. This was not the case in this incident." And CP24's Steve Ryan joins us live now with more. Steve.
So anytime a person makes a call to a police radio room, the call taker makes a couple of determinations. Number one, is it a non-emergency call or is it a 911 call? Now, obviously, that is done to make a determination as to how quickly the police respond. Then the complaint that is being put forward to the call taker is classified. And the reason why all calls are classified is so that the uniforms that are responding know or have some idea as to what they are getting themselves into. So in this particular case, somebody called the police and said that there was a suspicious person undressed trying to break into a house and into a car. So a couple of things right away strike me. Number one, it's an attempt break and enter, and it's an attempt theft into an auto. Not a theft of an auto, but into an auto. Because it's in progress, that makes that a 911 call. So the officers responding to that call have in their mind that they are rushing to a scene whereby somebody is claiming that a young person suspiciously is trying to break into a house and a vehicle. That sets the scene. When they get on scene, this is where now this investigation that is being conducted is vitally important. And yes, we did hear that the police in Peel Region have a vulnerable persons registry. That is a key protocol or procedure that can help in many situations where a person is reported to be acting in a manner that is consistent with their vulnerability, and then the call taker then can send the appropriate agency, the appropriate personnel to that situation. In this case, the police did not have that information because it was a 911 call, and they did not have this suspicious, and I use that in quotes, the suspicious person's name, address, or any information about his vulnerabilities. So when the police arrived on scene, then they had this interaction with this young man, this 19-year-old young man, and this is where it is key for this investigation. The police have different use of force options. It starts with their hands. They can use a baton. They can use an asp, which is the baton. They can use pepper spray. They can use a taser and or a firearm. And you do not have to go from one to the other. The fact that they used a taser begs the question now as to why. What happened when they arrived on scene that caused them to believe that it was appropriate under the law to use that type of force? This is where this investigation will go to determine whether or not this officer or officers, when they deployed that taser, were justified in doing so. If they weren't, well, then they could be looking at criminal charges with regards to assault with a weapon and or police act charges as well. And then very quickly, a taser is not pretty. When you deploy a taser at a target, you aim for the big part of the body, and what happens is the components of that taser come out like a spider web. It's got prongs, and those prongs dig into the skin, and they dig into the skin so that the electricity in that taser gets into the body and it incapacitates a person. You need justification for that. You can't just use that because. That's going to be the big question here. It's not about the information that the police did not have when they arrived, because it was impossible for them to have it based on the nature of the call. But what happened when they got on scene, and were they justified or not in using the amount of force that they did in tasing this 19-year-old young man? I'll send it back to you.
That's CP24's Steve Ryan. Thank you, Steve.